Good morning, and nice to see everybody, and apologies that I could not be there yesterday. Thank you very much to the organisers at GHI and SRUC and to Annie for this invitation. So, and also indeed to James for initiating this piece of work. So I am not an expert on SAFR, but I very much enjoyed the work involved in writing this report. And we have Adrian Baselane, who will be the expert, who I'm looking forward to handing over to in a minute. But with this intro presentation, what I'd like us to think about is, okay, we know about SAFR, we know about the technique, well, we have some details on the technicalities of SAFR. There's maybe this question around us about why not us? Why aren't we doing SAFR? Why did we not do SAFR? And maybe it's we've been travelling to all these places. Let's travel back in time to France, pre-war France. Van Gogh was there in the north of Paris, Auvers-sur-Oiseau, and he was looking at these fields. We're talking about land consolidation. This was the problem. And SAFR, which is maybe perhaps a twist for some people, it was about consolidating land originally. So very interesting to hear Katrina talk about that. So we have this patchwork quilt in France. And we have these romanticized visions of France, the Gleaners, which actually is a very strong social justice dimension to it, and it continues today. If you haven't seen Agnes Varda's film on the Gleaners, please watch it. People gleaning from marketplaces, etc. So we have this romanticized version of France, but the reality was that it was a relic of the past, and it was behind other countries who were racing towards the modernisation of agriculture. So a slight case of Instagram versus reality, and we need to acknowledge this reality and understand that it was a period of mass exodus from the rural France that led to a politicized context which enabled SAFR to happen. And I would just like to see some notes. So say at the end of the Second World War, France returned to this, perhaps not particularly this image is pre-war, but it returned to a situation of dilapidated farms and non-standardized plot sizes and very, very tough rural working conditions and cottage industry farming, you would say, and it lagged behind those agricultural states that had begun to be Sarah Farmer, the historian, describes how the combination of impoverished conditions on farms alongside improved conditions in cities led to a rural exodus, as not only landless farm labourers, but also the children of smallholder peasant farmers left the countryside for the city. And I like this detail. In some cases, the migration of rural men was precipitated by the migration of rural women, for whom the desire to live in a decent house with washing machines and updated kitchens could be the first step in the decision to leave for the city. So the gender element is there throughout as well. Let's not forget that. The empowerment of women, and they're beginning to work and they are wanting to move to the city. Then post-war, into this context, the SAFRs were created as part of an extensive package of agricultural reforms with the rationale of agricultural modernisation. A key aim of SAFR was the redistribution of agricultural land, but also the reorganisation into consolidated parcels that could be rendered more efficient through mechanisation and industrialisation. So we have these parallel developments of the mechanisation of farm machinery, and we see tractors, and people wanted big plots for their big tractors, basically. So I'm in a world of tractors at the moment with my 2-year-old son. So I think this is a nod to him. So the rationale for SAFR should be understood within the wider aims of transforming French agriculture, and the agricultural reforms were set within a period of social mobility with particular impacts on agricultural communities. It really is a fascinating history, and I'd like to nod to these writers who really informed and made my research in this interesting and come to life. So please have a look at their work. Cellular Farmer, Venus Vivar, and MC Cleary. Okay, some books I wish I'd written, let's say that. Okay, so it should also be noted, and what I gleaned from this material was that SAFER was highly controversial when it was introduced. The French National Archives are replete with letters from farmers addressed to the SAFER, the Ministry of Agriculture, and to the President of the Republic, seeking recourse in the wake of what they deemed unjust decisions regarding land redistribution. But those pleas were ignored, and remedy was not granted to those farmers. So I tried to find maps, and if anyone wants to apply for PhD funding or something, I would love to work on this archival work. But just in my on my Google search, I didn't get very far. But so I was looking at how we can understand the changing face of France at this period, and this map made me laugh because of this part at the top where it's there's a slight dip in wine production in 1954, but fortunately they got it back up in 1960. So thank goodness for that. And then another terrible map that I found on the internet. Sorry. Okay, and just looking at the changing faces, but I didn't get very far. But in order to visualize the change that happened in France at this time, this map or this graph from Our World in Data is very powerful, and you see how the GDP of France was transformed post Second World War. It became an agricultural nation, and it became an agricultural powerhouse competing in world trade and exporting agricultural produce. And Adrian will correct me if I'm wrong, but some people credit that to SAFER. Many commentators credit this transformation to SAFER.
Well,
not to you personally, but
to the agricultural modernization.
Yeah.
One instrument of which is the SAFER.
Okay. Yes. Right. Got you. Okay. Okay. So, how did France do this? So, like many, as we say, wasn't just SAFER. Like many agricultural states at that time, the French government used tools like the industrialization of farming, creating subsidies for major agricultural crops, promoting chemical inputs, new hybridized seeds, techniques, technologies, and mechanization, and by facilitating farmers' access to these inventions through enabling credit and agricultural loans, sometimes for the first time. These developments underlined the need for further intervention in agricultural land in a bid to ensure that the land was structured into effective linear parcels that would allow machinery to operate. But we also need to understand that there was a politicized context. So farmers organized through the Young Catholic Farmers Union and the main farming union, the FNSAA, to advocate for the creation of a body, like SAFER to monitor and manage agricultural land sales. And in my interviews for that work, I had a real privilege to talk to Robert Levesque, and he made the comment that it took 30 years of youth movements to impose a new agricultural policy in the 1960s. France had a trade deficit and wanted to modernise agriculture. At the same time, it wanted to create a common market with 6 countries. Young farmers were keen to set up these SAFERs, and the state made this possible. Then we have the 4 key policies of SAFER, which I'm not sure if this is a bit that's most interesting to people or not, but I said to Adrian that I would implant it in here, which are the Statute of Agricultural Tenancies, Then the creation of SAFRs as a governance mechanism, the creation of control over farm structures, which aim to ensure farms are neither too big or too small. They talked about human-sized farms or family-sized farms at that time. And the creation of subsidies to support the setting up of farmers. And crucially, those farmers had to be considered good or preferable. So that's where the monitoring, the choosing of SAFR comes in, because they choose the farmer who submits the best plan to preserve the agricultural traditions of the region. It's a terrible infographic, but it's to say then this is an introduction to SAFR also has these what they call general missions. I've put in brackets public missions, because this is how SAFR rationalizes its decisions. And there's a common understanding that it's public interest decisions. So these are public missions. So these are the backbone of what SAFR is doing. It can take different measures in order to participate in the protection of the environment. It can take different measures to support local development, make choices on the development of agriculture and forestry, make choices in order, if it can justify it, as ensuring transparency in the rural land market. And there's lots of examples under those 4 headings of the kind of things SAFR does. But for instance, it might fight against flooding, and that's justified as being legitimate a SAFR duty because of its public missions, which are set out clearly. And then, as I say, regional variations are a very strong element of SAFR's work, so that different regions have different challenges and different leanings towards what they will do. Some of them are more urban. Pierre Mezot, SAFR Ile-de-France, which includes the Paris region. He says one of the main roles of my SAFR is to fight against sprawl. People try to build houses without permission. They will put a trailer on the land. They will bring rubbish, cut the wood without permission. We have a preemptive right. We work with local authorities. We are informed of the sale. And if there is a danger, we can use our preemptive right, and then there is no sale. Fascinating to talk to him as well. Okay, and then there is a small part after this where I talk about misunderstandings about SAFR, and we might get to it, but I need to check the time. Okay, thank you. So a really key and significant thing about SAFR that we all need to be armed with, weaponized with, is that it's been around for 60 odd years. It has, France has been a member of the European Court of Human Rights and the Court of Justice since all that time, and SAFR is legitimate in front of those bodies. So it's ECHR and ECJ compliant. So that's a very significant thing that we need to remember about SAFR. I would say also that before I finish that, SAFR is not perfect. I'm not here for SAFR. I enjoy doing the research. Okay, but it is widely misunderstood, and also by farmers, and that's what the SAFR representatives told me as well. And here, for example, we have confusion at the time when it was introduced between new rurals who thought it was representing the other party, the large farmers, and the large farmers think it was presenting the new rurals. Mass confusion, chaos. I'm sorry to do this to this representative of the Scottish Parliament, but also misunderstood. He misunderstands SAFR, okay? He talks about SAFR as being some tyrannical model agent of the state. It's not an agent of the state, as Adrian hopefully will explain. SAFR is a private body with public functions. That's exactly what he asks for at the end. We need private enterprise with public purpose. That is SAFR, okay? So it was very, very clumsy, and it probably went unnoticed. So spoiler, SAFR here, it's not safe, okay? What else to say? It's a private enterprise, public purpose. Also, we talk about land grab, land, etc. It's not talking about all land, it's talking about agricultural land. And the reason we go back to that period of time, there was a time where agricultural land was considered differently and there was a public interest attached to agricultural land. Not so in the UK anymore, I would say, which is the bigger question that affects us all in our daily lives because of the food system, etc. Sorry, the last two things. SAFER is said to increase, not decrease transparency. And in my report, I say, Colleen Perrine suggests there's ways to make it more transparent, but it's already miles more transparent than private land deals, which we have to deal with elsewhere. Okay, so SAFER does increase transparency. It doesn't mean that it's completely transparent. There's more transparency that we could feed into it, but it's still very, very transparent. And please, SAFER is not safer. Okay, thank you for listening. Okay. Yep.